So I thought I knew what really big wind felt like because I grew up in an Eskimo fishing village about 31 miles above the Arctic Circle, a little tiny, teeny weeny fishing village called Kotzebue. And it's actually on the Chukchi Sea, and so I thought I knew what blizzards felt like. I knew exactly what it felt like to have it blow for 3 months and not stop. And, I found myself on my first big research expedition really questioning whether or not I had fully understood how big those winds could potentially be. Because before, of course, I was on land, and now, of course, I'm in the ocean. When I was in that little fishing village, I dreamed of being an explorer. But of course, on land, all these fabulous geologists had tramped all over everything, mapped everything. It felt like everything had been done. So I decided I would explore in the ocean. And so from that tiny little fishing village, I'm still an oceanographer, if you can believe it. And so I found out when I got a little bigger that you couldn't go to Scripps Institution of Oceanography out there in La Jolla, San Diego, the beach, yeah. You can't go there for undergrad. It's a graduate program. You have to get through your undergraduate work. And so I went to my backup school. I went to Harvard. And because they paid for it, which was awesome. Everybody should go into science, I tell you. So I go to Harvard, and it's fabulous, and I take all my classes, and it's really wonderful, and it's, it's Ivy covered, and it's really amazing, and all these smart people, blah, blah, blah. But I'm dying to go to Scripps. I'm very serious about going to Scripps. So I get to Scripps, and my first opportunity, I go to sea, and I get as far away from land, and my mother, I mean from land. Please don't tell my mom. You're not putting this on the web, are you? So I get as far away from land as I possibly can in what they call the Southern Ocean, which is the ocean around Antarctica. Basically, it takes at least 14 days of transit, basically driving all day, all night for 14 days in a 300-foot ship to get to the research area. It's so far from land. The nearest land point from where we were working was Pitcairn Island, where they ate people. I mean, really bad. So we're out there, and it's September, and I think September, it'll be kind of, late summer. Wrong! This is the Southern Hemisphere. It's the winter. So we get down there, and it is 80 knots. 80 knots. That's like 80 miles an hour, give or take a little bit. Seriously. I'm not joking. It's blowing so hard. And that's not the worst part. So the blowing is terrible because I thought I knew what it felt like to be in the wind. And this was different. Turns out, Southern Hemisphere winds, the winds around Antarctica, are 30% stronger than the ones in the Northern Hemisphere because there's nothing to run into. There's no Rocky Mountain speed bump. There's no Himalayas. There's just a little tiny bit of the Andes, but the rest just whips around and around and around. So there I am, out on the ship, 300 foot, and I've been at sea before, but not for a big long cruise. 49 days we're out. 49 days in the middle of the winter, and I've got all this new gear, and I'm all ready, and I'm making oxygen measurements, and I'm making surface seawater measurements, and it's really awesome, and I'm so excited for about the first week. And then it really hits. I mean, that was bad. This was worse. The mountains of water that are created by these huge waves are basically so big that the petrels and the albatross basically make like fighter jets around the edges of them, like they were the Matterhorn, and they're just making laps. It's amazing. You think the Catalinas are big. These look bigger, really much bigger. So my job, in addition to making these measurements, was to take what they call these expendable bathythermographs. We're going to make temperature measurements, and I have to chuck it off the back end of the ship called the fantail. And all that it's got is an open chute with a chain across the back, right? And the ship, you have to understand, we're going up these waves, up, 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 up. This is a 300-foot ship. Up, 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 up. And then shoosh, down the other side. It's almost 0G. You're like sliding down fast, and then the prow, so that's the fun part. Here comes the bad part. You dig in. So I'm up on the O1 deck, up on the bridge, looking with the big glass windows and all the rest of it. And on a good day, it's just a little spritz on the O1 deck. On a bad day, it was blue. The water was so heavy on the bridge that it was blue. And on a bad day, the prow would dig so hard into the next wave that the mountain would just fall onto the ship. And it would fall so hard that the ship would shudder down and then shake as she tried to get back up out of the water. You could feel it. When we got back, the ship started out blue and came back orange from the rust. We had the J-arm had been bent from being turned into the water. The railings had come away from most of the fantail. We just limped back into port. But my job was to dump this XBT off every 6 hours. Get your fanny out there. I'm the junior scientist, and boy, I am not gonna miss, right? So I'm out there, and I've got my thing, and I go out to the back, and I've got my line on the back. I got my zoot suit on. I've got the crewman on the winch, just in case. And I'm toddling out there, and I think, is it okay? Looks okay. I'm going. And I get out there, and it just drops on the fantail, like literally over my head, knocks me off my feet. I'm under like 4 feet of water. It's just like way over my head, and I'm flat. I'm being sped towards that fantail. And I'm thinking, I can't breathe. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then I get my steel-toe boot gets jammed in the chain where it hooks to the actual fantail. And sure enough, the guy had me on the winch, and he would have pulled me back in, and it was fine. But I still have dreams of black water over my head. You wake up sweating, going, I can't breathe. Whew. Don't worry, I've spent almost a year of my life doing this now, like actually out at sea, doing these deep sea cruises. It's totally awesome. You gotta get back on that horse. But so I do this for 49 days, and I come back, and I basically lock myself in the library, and I read everything there is, absolutely everything there is. There's something special going on here. There's something extraordinary, something amazing. And I've never read about it. I've never even heard about it. Turns out there is this massive current down there. It is 4 times bigger than the Gulf Stream. It reaches from the surface to 5 kilometers down to the inky black abyss. 5 kilometers, 50 football fields down, 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 down. And the current is so strong it scours the bottom, literally pushing the sediment out of the way so that you can see the basalt bedrock underneath. It's amazing. This one you could see from space if you were an alien, because it's enormous. It's the biggest current on planet Earth times 4. It's huge. So that's it. I'm hooked. I want to study this. I'm going to be an explorer, and I'm going to do this. And so the best explanation, though, I found about this current, there's lots of science, but I just want to tell you a little story that I read in these Norse myths. Basically, Hymri the Giant is the best fisherman ever, right? He is amazing. He's the biggest guy. He can row the furthest. He's the toughest, strongest, bravest guy out there, this giant. And he keeps all his fishing areas secret. Well, Thor is jealous because this guy is the best fisherman. So he basically disguises himself as a young boy and says, hey, Hymri, I want to come out with you. And Hymri says, no way. So Thor walks over, rips the head off an ox, and says, I've got bait. Let's go fishing. So out they go, row, row, row. And Hymri gets all the way out to the furthest fishing spots that he's ever gone and says, this is good enough. And Thor, of course, being, a little bit of a jerk, says, no way, we're not even close. And he really puts his back into it because he's a god, right? God of thunder and wind. So he gets them all the way out, and I think they rowed all the way to the Southern Ocean. I think they rowed to the big winds. And they bait that hook, and Thor puts it over the side, and he fishes, and he gets a bite. He gets the biggest bite there ever was. He gets the bite of the Midgard serpent, who comes up and grabs that ox head. And he pulls, and it smacks Thor's arms into the gunnels. He pulls so hard. So Thor is like, well, the heck you will. And he gives it a good yank. And the Midgard serpent's head comes all the way up. This massive head of this serpent, right, of this great deep ocean current comes all the way to the surface. And Thor says, and Hymri says, and cuts the line. And the Midgard serpent's great head goes back into the ocean. And I actually think that's what you see. I think that's what you see is the mighty battle between Thor, god of wind and thunder, and the deep ocean current. And I study it still today. I came back from Princeton today because today was, the press release went out yesterday. We have a new $21 million grant to put floats into the Southern Ocean in huge numerical models, some of which we're leading the modeling from right here at the University of Arizona. The big announcement from NSF was yesterday. So that was why I was in Princeton. And so I'm still studying this. I'm still stuck on it. Been doing this since I was 22. And so essentially, I still dream of black water because, well, that's the experience, right? But when I dream now, hanging there in the inky black, I dream of the big face that comes up out of the water, and you just think,